Quad66. Here it is, the Touring 122. This is an extremely satisfying release for me. I've been working on it for a while, and it's a little bit different than pretty much anything I've done in the past for a few reasons. So what is this? This is a 122mm frame. It's very Warpig-ish, but with some key differences. Those differences come about because this frame is specifically designed to carry this video system. So this is the HDZero Whoop VTX with the 90 frame per second nano camera and the upgraded lens. And in particular, I find that that combination offers something so different, so much better visually than analog, that it's worthwhile building a dedicated build around it. And you just can't get that type of visual experience out of analog, and so that's what really motivated me to go ahead and build this. I initially wanted to go for a 2.5-inch build, but there's just too much compromise there in terms of you're either losing power or losing flight time, and the 3-inch really got this to where I was happy with it. Now, I specifically built this up for myself to fly on 2S and to fly in very small spaces, and so that's the reason I'm on this small 122mm platform to keep this really tight. But this frame will easily handle 1204s with 3S, and so there's going to be a huge, huge range of where and how you can fly this quad. Now, if you try and go too big, things are just going to stop working. So if you get the prop really tall, you're going to start getting interference here. But that's going to be if you go to some stupid big motors and some really tall props. With this as is, combinations like 1204 with 3018, which is pretty tall, work just fine. You can also fly this on the 1104s. My favorite combination so far on 2S is going to be these FPV Cycle 13mm motors with the 3020 props. So what's unique about this? Going through the features, in 3 inches, this is going to be offered in both a 3mm frame, which is what I have here, which saves a little bit of weight, and also 4mm. Obviously, if you're going with bigger motors than 3S, you want the 4mm. If you're going like I am here and trying to really keep the weight down, you can go with the 3mm frame to save a little bit of weight. The frame weight on this in 3mm is 7.4, 7.5 grams, somewhere along those lines. And then in 4mm, it's going to bump it up to 10 grams. With the canopy, including the hardware for it, which includes some steel screws, and including also the camera mounting screws, that canopy comes in at 4.8 grams. So my all-up weight on the frame plus canopy on this build in 3mm was 12.3 grams. And if you go to 4mm, you're going to add 2.5 grams or so. So this canopy is very structural. It locks in here really well, and it adds a lot of rigidity through the middle of the body, and that actually helps with the noise. The logs look better than I would expect on this frame otherwise. And then there's some really nice quality of life features built in. One of them is I've gone to battery strap here, so I've gotten rid of the little nubs on the sides because we're only mounting this square. And with the battery strap and the square orientation, these screws are not in the way, so you can get the battery straight down onto the frame, and when you lock it in tight, that's also going to help clean up noise. It's going to keep that, it's going to use that battery, the mass of the battery, to help dampen the noise. The biggest quality of life feature here is going to be what's probably the most unique feature, which is the quick release system. So up front, this acts like a hinge. The way this screw comes in through here and hooks in under the front of the plate, the frame plate. And in the back, all you have to do is loosen one screw. So you just come in here, give that a little turn to loosen it up. And because this is slotted, this will pull right out. And once this is out, this will, the canopy is actually going to slide off of here, hinge on the front, and that allows the whole thing to come right off. And so then if you go ahead and pull the camera lead off, then you've got nice access to be able to work on everything. And it's a really convenient system to be able to, if you need to change motors or something like that, or just work on your stack or whatever you need to do. It's super, super convenient. Because of the way this is designed, I've designed this to be really tight. So you might need some hand finishing. If you need to do any hand finishing, that's going to be in this section right here. This is what this little spot right here is what sits on the frame. And so if you need to hand finish it, you might need to take this down a little bit, or just put a drop of CA to build it up if it's a little loose. When I designed this, I erred on the side of making it slightly too tight, so if anything, you're probably going to have to take a little bit of material off of there. If you do take the material off of there, go just a tiny bit at a time, because you don't want to end up with it too loose. But as I said, if it's too loose, you can just add a drop of CA, and so all is not going to be lost if you get it a little bit too loose. And then obviously, since this was so easy to take off, it should be just as easy to put back together and button back up. So that just slides in. And you can see how tightly, even without that screw on there, that all slides together. And it really creates a ton of rigidity back here, and really helps things stay locked in. So that screw in the back, it just slots in there. And then you just tighten it up again, just one screw to tighten it up, and you're good to go. The other thing that creates a lot of rigidity here is we're using flex in the frame, so you can see how this tapers from the 14 millimeters back to 10 millimeters back here. And as we pinch this in, that's going to really create like a lot of nice pressure on the outside of the camera and really make this a really solid setup. One little detail to note is that these are button head screws. That's what's going to come with the kit. You do need to use button head there if you use a standard hex. With some taller combinations like the 1204 with the 3018, that's going to be tall enough to where you can get, as you come through like a G out at the bottom of a power loop or something, and you start to get that frame or that prop flex, you can get into the screw. You can see with the button head, hopefully you can see that with the button head, there's plenty of clearance. And the only time you're going to run into interference problems is if you go with a very, very tall setup and you come way up here to where the prop gets into the canopy itself. But that's going to be a much taller setup. And if you're running a setup like that, this isn't the frame for you. You want something with thicker arms. You're looking at a different quad. I'm going to have suggested builds. So this build in particular, for me, this came in at 69 grams for the dry weight with a Tattoo R-Line 550, which I do charge to high volt. This comes in at 101 grams. If you're bumping it up to 3S, I would recommend a lightweight 3S pack, but a combination like that is going to get you to like 110 grams. Now, that is, this quad does fly perfectly well on the bi-blades, and I do like bi-blades a lot, but these bi-blades are so thin that we're getting up there in the weight, so if you're getting up 110, 120 grams, you're getting to the limits of these props, and I think the 3020s do a little bit better. Now the 3020s, that does push these motors, these are the FPV cycle 13 millimeter motors, that does push these motors to the limit. It's just, we're kind of on the edge case of some of these things here. These motors are handling these props well enough to get a good tune, but you can't really go with much more aggressive of a prop. And then, as I said, with the 3018 props, which are easier for the motors to manage, I chew these up really fast. And also, I think if you go to, if you're going 3S with the 1204s, that weight is really going to be getting to where these props are going to be, you're going to start blowing through the props pretty easily. But anyways, this quad, I really truly enjoy flying it. I'll do some videos on the tune that I've come up with for it. It's still a little bit of a work in progress, but it's pretty much there. And you know, kind of go through some suggested builds and things like that. If there's any questions, ask away. This is going to be up on CNCdrones. I think I'm going to try and get it up on Armatan as well for the international people, so that if you're, you know, from overseas over in Europe or Asia or someplace else, you know, you have a convenient place as well besides CNCdrones. But hopefully, I think most of the sales probably go through CNCdrones. All right, that's what I got. Touring 122. Until next time, cheers.